I never used to see you make the jigger low flex. As somebody else in favor you in the complex.
Shaggy, it wasn't me on the 2FM Breakfast Show Monday morning. Well, have we got a treat for you next on the big radio station 2FM for the start of the U2 Elevation Tour. Dave Fanning and Gerry Ryan in Miami. Okay, that's up next on 2FM. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning between 7 and 9. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Damien McCall.
Yeah, I'm watching Carnation Street. That Ken Barrell is an awful bore. No wonder Deirdre's planning to run off with the mechanic. Oh, hang on, Emmerdale's on in the kitchen. I have to say, I don't know how I'd keep up with all the soaps without Chorus. By calling 1890 2020 29, we got connected to the best of TV channels, including BBC, UTV and Channel 4 for just £30. Ah, poor Jethro's heartbroken. He's had to put his prize bull down. And when we took their cost-saving telephone service, we got a second TV connection to Chorus Intro installed in the kitchen for less than £5 a month. So now I can keep up to date with my favourite soaps, even if they're on at the same time.
Local 1890 2020 29 and get your home connected to Chorus. Terms and conditions apply. Offer subject to availability.
Nowadays, it seems most ads have to feature some zippy music. Or an annoyingly brash announcer.
Have I got an offer for you?
Or the obligatory loud effects. But this ad is for the Volkswagen Polo, and like the Polo, it doesn't feature any superficial gimmicks. There are no free front electric foot warmers or no talking furry dice, just the promise of a reliable and very resaleable car. Now that's worth shouting about. Yahoo! Test drive the incredibly resaleable Volkswagen Polo today.
Daddy, I made this tape at Mummy's house.
And the weather forecast: cold, windy and cloudy. Rain in the southwest will extend to the rest of Munster and much of Connacht, staying dry elsewhere with a little sunshine breaking through in places. Highest temperatures 6 to 10 degrees. I'm Avril Hoare and that's the 2FM News.
This is the Gerry Ryan Elevate Me Show with Gerry and Dave Fanning, live from Florida for the start of U2's Elevation World Tour on U2FM.
Hi, my name's Gerry Ryan.
And his name's Dave Fanning.
That's right, and though we may sound like brothers in the promo, we are in fact two entirely separate people, and we are here in Miami, as the promo said, coming to you from a tiny little room in a beautiful suburb right beside a place where a man has a magnificent yacht, proving that commercial radio is probably more lucrative than the other thing. Basically, we're here really, Dave, aren't we, to tell them all about the beginning of the U2 World Tour.
We certainly are. The one that's going to end at the... This sounds very American. We certainly are, Gerry, and it's a lovely day out there, and it's going to end in a place called Slane Castle in County Meath.
And you know something, folks? It's even better than the real thing.
Oh, yeah, than the real thing.
Well, it all started, I suppose, Elevation 2001 in a small shed in Charlotte Dock in Dublin, where they rehearsed the set tracks until such time as they got them down pat. There are no big screens, though there are screens. There are no lemons. There are no giant anythings, really. But there was one heck of a stunningly wonderful rock and roll show. I think you'd agree with that, Dave.
Yeah, that's what the whole thing is about. They said themselves that they had this thing for the album, All That You Can't Leave Behind, which is the current album. They had a feel in the studio that they hadn't had for some time. And they wanted to get out on the road kind of quickly to get that feel across on stage, but not too quickly that it might have been like Pop Mart a few years ago, which, regardless of how people might look back on it and say, wow, wasn't that one of the biggest and best shows we ever saw, went down well in America, but not brilliantly. And like, as they said at the beginning of the 90s, about 10 years ago, we're going to have to reinvent ourselves, and they did reinvent themselves, the Octung Baby thing, the Zoo, and all the rest of them into all sorts of different kind of music. To be blunt, they're reinventing themselves again. As what was the phrase used yesterday? Forward to the basics or something?
Forward, bringing not back to basics, but forward to basics.
Forward to basics.
Now, about 3-4 years ago, whenever it was, the Pop Mart started in Las Vegas in the Sam Boyd Stadium, I can recall going down to the stadium and watching this giant edifice, this thing that was absolutely awe-inspiring from a visual point of view, but terrifying from an artist's point of view. U2. It also sucked the lifeblood out of the U2 bank account. It was incredibly expensive. Yesterday, we head down to a much smaller arena, but very intimate and friendly. In fact, Dave, as you were saying yesterday, the kind of place that we really should have at home.
It would be great to have at home, yeah.
And everything was scaled down. Everything was scaled down. And yet, by the time we got to watching the live show, this was not a scaled-down musical experience. We kicked off with Elevation.
Oh no, the musical experience wasn't scaled down at all. In fact, quite the opposite, because it is the songs that speak for the band. In fact, I was surprised at how little Bono said in between songs, because normally that's how he drags the audience in, by the bits he says in between, and they go with the next song much bigger than they went with the previous one or whatever. He really did let the songs do the talking this time. They just breezed out while the lights were still on, in the whole arena. They just kind of this small stage and started off with the song Elevation.
Do you know what it reminded me of? If anybody can remember back to Parky Queeve many years ago.
They just back out onto the stage kind of in front of 60,000 people waiting for 6 weeks to see this gig. They're on. What? They've started.
And it's literally the house lights were up. They have this, they're not allowed to call it a mosh pit area because, well, legally, socially, culturally and for safety reasons and insurance reasons this is unacceptable, but there literally is a pit in front of the stage encased in this diamond walkway where about 300 or 400 fans are actually
the lucky ones
brought
who
in.
get there first. It's like anybody who ever saw Metallica at the Point, they have a sort of a figure eight thing where it's like the half the figure eight, and don't say four, but it's a bit like that in the middle. And as the guy said, because they all wave their arms so much, it's not really a mosh pit, it's more like an armpit. And they're down at the front and they're the ones who come along first at the gig. Also, it's very unusual in the States to have indoor gigs like this with loads of people standing in the middle. It usually has to be seats, and there has been problems obviously with Pearl Jam, with Roskilde, and with Limp Bizkit recently as well. And they said, listen, it was a bit of a major thing for a few days before the gig. Said, look, this is going to be fine. We've done it in Europe loads of times, no problem. And of course, we'll say it worked perfectly. And this really is, as you say, as intimate as you can possibly imagine it could be. Because there's 18,000 people there last time, maybe. It's pretty small for you too.
Now, apart from the fact that it took us 2 hours longer than it should have taken to actually get to the gig, we got lost about 10 times, which is something that happens when you're in the United States.
Yeah, because the gig isn't in Miami, it's in Fort Lauderdale, which is quite different, yeah.
But when you get there, you see an incredible cross-section. You don't see a load of young fans or a load of much older people. An amazing cross-section of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, just what age groups are we talking about?
Well, when we're talking to them, they were going on about the fact how much they love All That You Can't Leave Behind, but there's always going back as far as Joshua Tree and whatever. I mean, those guys sitting 2 seats down for me, not that anybody was sitting at all really. I mean, I think he was at least 50 something, he was just absolutely loving the gig, and he's seen them 10 times before. And there was the other girl we spoke to towards the end. Is this the first time she's ever seen them, and has always wanted to, and thought they were just awesome. Dave, is that your name?
Now, after, as Dave said, it kicks off very quietly in a very understated way, and they get into Elevation at the beginning of the set. There's actually no lighting going on. It's kind of like somebody's
and then when it does go down, it goes into Beautiful Day, which of course is anthemic even already because of the fact that the Americans absolutely love it and it's still in the charts. And then it goes to Until the End of the World from the Achtung Baby album. And during that song, something very strange happened when Bono fell off the stage, which wasn't too cool. He's obviously not that used to this diamond ramp yet, so he was backing off at one stage, right at the very apex of it. In other words, as far out in the crowd he could possibly be. And he did fall down, obviously put back up pretty quickly. But I'd say he was pretty stunned. To be perfectly honest, I'd say it didn't do him an awful lot of good. And I'm amazed he didn't kind of, slope off for a while, let the band jam for a few minutes and just sort of get the head together. He just kept going. Now, I'm not sure if that was a good idea.
There may be no Macfisto character, but there is a character, and you will watch this character unfold, and maybe it'll be fully developed by the time he gets to Slane. It's a kind of slouching, crouching, leg-dragging hobo.
Especially
tramp.
when he goes past those screen things later on. Now, the thing about it is, I mean, as Siobhan pointed out earlier, there were one or two Macfistos in the audience, which is terribly sad.
And people with glove puppets with nuns on their hands. That was strange, but I couldn't figure that out.
I thought that though, after when it did discotheque, and you realise, right, this is discotheque without the lemon. They're not going to walk down these huge big stairs. This is just as it's supposed to be. And I thought this works just as well as anything else. Because the funny thing about U2 at the moment is that no matter what they tried on the pop album some years back with the, I don't know, like maybe a little bit of hip hop here and sort of whatever dance music was current at the time in '97, they are now a rock, pop, and soul band with this new album. And I mean, Discotheque was a pop song last night.
It was interesting, too, to hear them talking about this being the second time round in Miami, and Bono getting up and saying, we recorded the pop album here. And to be perfectly honest, we would have done a lot more recording only for the distractions of Miami. And indeed, there are a lot of distractions.
And there's a song on the pop album that'll tell you all about that, I can tell you, which is simply called Miami, yeah. But once they got to things like New Year's Day and Stuck in a Moment then, and those kind of songs, by then it started to really get up. And I thought, oddly enough, when they went right back to things like I Will Follow, They actually went down the best.
Oh yeah, the audience went completely ballistic. I mean, the playing is marvellous. The musicianship is absolutely fantastic. The technology is dealt with. Anybody now who's thinking of trying to write a review and saying Bono's voice is a bit odd or ropey, or maybe he's not as able to hit the high notes as he used to, wrong. That's all intact. Edge is now more evidently vocal than he ever was before. I'd never heard his voice, to be honest, before. And the music is just so together.
Yeah, and Bono himself, he played about sort of, I don't know, about 40% of the way into the gig. He played The Sweetest Thing, which, as a lot of people will know, was the song for Ali, because he forgot her birthday once, his wife, and he'd give her this song instead, so she's getting the royalties for Chernobyl now. That was one of the few things he actually said last night on stage. There was more than 5 or 6 sentences in terms of talking. And then when he finished that, he said, "Happy birthday, Ali," because it was the day before. And then he went on to play In a Little While from the new album, and he dedicated that song to her. So it was actually that song, which is, I know, very like, Dave, doesn't matter, he just played the songs, so don't need to go into that kind of detail. But, you know, he didn't say much on stage, so when he does say something, you want to know what he's saying.
Okay, boys and girls, I think we're going to take a break.
There's lots of great reasons for having new family mailbox from Aircom.
How are you there, Paul? Maurice Donnelly from Male Manicure and Toupee Centre here. Listen, I got those samples in this morning and one of them perfectly matches the hair you left me. I should have the new wig ready for collection next week. I hope herself doesn't get wind of this. Oh, the jig.
With Family Mailbox, Aircom's new call management service, you have a personal mailbox with your very own password. So now the only person who gets to listen to your messages is you. If you're already on call answering, you can upgrade to new Family Mailbox for just an extra 50p per month. So call us now on free phone 1800 310 710. Aircom. Go further.
Here's more better value all this week only at Dunnes Stores. Buy a bag of Golden Delicious apples, get one free. Save $1.70 on 6 part-bone chicken breasts. Twin packs of pasta sauce now only $1.89, and get 12 luxury toilet rolls for the price of 9. That's more better value only from Dunnes Stores.
For every friend who says, "I wouldn't leave it there if I were you," the new Mazda 323 gives you central double locking with burglar alarm. For every date that goes from warm to steamy, the Mazda 323 gives you electric front windows and an outside temperature gauge. And for every white van that suddenly pulls out, the Mazda 323 gives you ABS with EBD and 4 airbags. From £14,105, delivery and related charges extra. Mazda. Cars for the real world.
You're listening to the Gerry Ryan Elevate Me Show live from Florida with thanks to Aer Lingus on 2FM.
Absolutely.
Gerry, wait a minute. Have you got a Lenny Kravitz story?
A Lenny Kravitz story? Oh, yeah. Listen, we hired a very cheap and nasty car, folks, right? Very cheap and nasty car, and stuffed all of the Ryan Show team into it. And the real tragedy of how low grade we are is that last night we met Sam Smith from the Indo, and himself and a couple of his companions had seen a giant limo arrive with all these extraordinarily exotic people stumbling out in various stages of dishevelment and intoxication.
They thought it was us.
And they thought it was the Ryan Show. It actually turns out to be Lenny Kravitz, who has
a phone roadie, a cell modie.
Check this out. Tell him about it.
He gets out of the car, this huge limo, and sort of falls out with a bunch of other kind of liggery types or whatever. And this phone just gets handed to him. And he just sort of goes, yeah, and hands it straight back in terms of not turning it on, not turning it off. It rings, and he gets somebody else to turn it on and turn it off. Now that's what I really call style. Lenny has it.
So, you know, if Pop Mart began in the insanity of Vegas, Elevation begins in the kind of tacky rundown sort of thing that Miami is. I know many of you are familiar with Miami, having driven through the place probably on your way to Walt Disney World. We, when we arrived here, went out on South Beach about 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's kind of like Bray on drugs or something, really, isn't it?
And we met John Russia walking along the seafront.
We meet John Russia walk. This place is stuffed with Irish people, and you've got all these guys. You know, it looks fantastic on television and things like Miami Vice and things like that. In actual fact, it's a bit of a kip, really, to be honest. And it's stuffed with guys driving the most incredibly beautiful cars, but they've got the biggest stereos in the world in the car, but you don't hear any music coming out of the car. You just hear this kind of boom, 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 and it just sounds like the engine is about to blow up. So it's within that atmosphere that you two have chosen to start off their world tour. After the gig, myself and Dave, because obviously we were completely professional and hadn't had a beer or anything.
We still did a bit of work.
And before we
spoke to fans.
Before we looked to the bacchanalian delights of the backstage pass, we indeed even, what would you say, Dave?
And I had a #1 laminate.
That's right, and we spoke to fans, and this is what they had to say about the gig.
We're just the hustlers from Jacksonville, Florida, and oh my God, we love the show. It's orgasmalicious. We loved it. Talk to my friend here.
His performance was amazing, but we wanted like a dismount, you know? We thought like a 9.5 for the jump off the stage, but we'd like a better dismount next time. Quite amazing when he walked through the crowd.
Hi, what's your name?
Tracy,
And where are you from, Tracy?
here, Fort Lauderdale.
Okay, look, the last 2 times you two played, it was a huge gig. It was Zoo TV. Why was this better?
It was more personal, up close. We saw them. We were right there. It was great. It was phenomenal. It was the best time
They don't
I've
need
ever
all
had
the
seen.
cars with the lights and all the production. They just need the music like they did tonight. That's all people want to see.
Phenomenal. They don't need that stuff. It's Bono. It's you too.
The first time I'd see them was on the Pop Mart tour, so it was in these big stadiums and arenas, and it was such a difference seeing them at a small hockey arena like this. The power and the intimacy that the band could create, it was hard to imagine going from one extreme to the other in a small place like this. It was absolutely amazing. It surpassed everything that I thought the show was going to be, and then some. I mean, it was a great show.
I've seen them every tour since 85, and which was coincidentally also in Florida, and they recaptured everything that they had then and then some. They sounded great. Bono's voice was back to its peak, I think. I was a little concerned at the Pop Mart. He seemed to have a lot of throat trouble and so on, but they were amazing. It's easily the best U2 show I've seen.
This was my first live show seeing them, and I thought the songs that they had recorded, great songs already, they brought them to life in a unique way with this performance. It was just it was stunning from beginning to end.
Just like to say, life without music would be a mistake, but this was my first time seeing them. I thought they were compassionate and progressive, innovative, and I was just blown away. Wonderful show.
I think it's great. We came from Dominican Republic just for the concert. We're leaving tomorrow, and we think it's great, perfect. We can't believe we saw Bono right in front of us. Okay, we won't sleep tonight.
I loved the concert, and I've been 2 years ago. I was at the other. I still have my French accent, but I was in the other concert, and it was fantastic. Vas-y, Pierre.
C'était tellement bon. Le show était absolument hallucinant. J'espère que vous allez jouer ça en français. It was unbelievable.
Rock and roll, Dougie.
Great show. Rock and roll, Dougie. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey, this was my first U2 show. It was excellent. I can't believe how much sound and music comes out of those 4 guys. It sounds more like a huge group. But the lighting was great. And the scrim that moved around, the light show that moved around, and the lyrics that would be written on the wall, it was gorgeous. Everything moved, and the lights behind the guys that chased across, and then the magic girl that came up, and they did all this magic, and he sat on top of it. It was great.
Give it up, slip to the top, keep them walking in and stop, hey, love, to believe in you. Hey, and I'm a creep.
Main song, like that was Elevation Live, of course, which is from the album All That You Can't Leave Behind. It's a live version of it there, and that's the tour, which is the Elevation 2001 tour from U2. And last night during Discotheque, they did Staring at the Sun.
There was
right
no cover version last night of anything. I've just realised.
No, there was no. They didn't do that Who thing or the Ramones thing.
Who Won't Get Fooled Again. I know they were rehearsing that.
Yeah, and they did Get Up, Stand Up by Bob Marley last night during Sunday Bloody Sunday, but only bits and pieces, just a few throwaway things. That's
now,
often
by the way, listening to that piece, the live version of Elevation there, reminds me immediately of how much back to the old days it is in terms of Bono's performance and how much of a nightmare that's going to be for the people who look after him on stage. Because with this big walkway that goes right round sort of half the arena, Bono's back out doing the kind of things that used to give heart attacks to the U2 roadies. And at one point, he's crowd surfing.
Yeah, and when Bono crowd surfs, he goes into tailspin, Gerry.
So his insurance company, his wife, I presume the rest of his family, the entire road crew, everybody absolutely.
Listen, by the way, I'd like to say something just about those people that we spoke to after the gig there, which you heard a few minutes ago. Yeah. In the interest of good radio, there was no balance there. I mean, nobody said U2 crap.
Yeah, actually, that's it's a point, because when we went off, now we were kind of rushing because obviously we wanted to go and get a couple of drinks, so we didn't do the entire arena. But there wasn't one single person. And maybe this might be the difference between Europe and America, or maybe not. We'll just have to wait and see. But there wasn't one single person who came up to us and said they were disappointed, or that they felt shortchanged, or that they didn't enjoy it. And by the way, I think it's also worth noting, you know, while everybody, and you will hear more about this later on when we get talking to the road crew, while everybody's talking down the visual part of the show, in fact, it does get fairly visual.
Oh, yeah, especially later on. I mean, much later on the show, around the time of With or Without You, those visuals are just amazing. Especially if you're towards the back, actually, you see it better because it just takes off the whole front, not just the stage. And I think a lot of that is Cathy Owen stuff. It's very good.
Okay, so how are the band at the moment? I mean, these are all married men.
Well, just remember...
Yeah? Guys with families now?
No, after the Pop Mart tour, regardless of how much of a huge experiment it was, you said, like, you know, nearly bankrupt. There was 125 million as much they took in on that, but I suppose it actually cost probably more than that. But the thing is, that with this one here now, like with doing the songs and just playing the gig the way it is, remember that they've won Grammys and Brits and all these other awards. Every single one of their albums is back into the top 100 in America or something like that. Anyway, all 10 or 11 of them or whatever it is. Also, they're up to about 7 million sales of this current one, which is probably the most successful album they've had since the Joshua Tree, which is now 14 years ago. So I think they're feeling pretty good, Gerry, and they haven't spent a fortune on the tour, I'd say, as well.
So, but despite that, you're still leaving children behind, you're still leaving wives behind, you're still leaving girlfriends behind, you're still leaving mammies and daddies behind. And last night, Larry Mullen was talking about, you know, how important it was for him to try and keep phone contact, you know, with the kids back home, and he was even going to bring them out on stage, and they have a thing called hubbing.
He could get Lenny's cell roadie
and contact them through them. So, Dave, you were talking to, I think it was Larry and to Bono, about the vagaries of going back on the road as a middle-aged man. Let's hear it.
Leaving home in terms of going around the world again, is that something you look forward to? I mean, you're musicians, this is what you do. You play in the studio, you play live. there's going to be no big lemons this time. There's going to be no huge big screens and all the rest of it. It's going to be as stripped down, maybe, as the album is. It's just you in, if you like, arenas as opposed to enormous domes.
Yeah, it's hard to leave your friends and your family and go out for a year. And it's hard to leave Dublin and the life that we have for ourselves here. But I do think these songs are a good reason. With some tunes, you have to push them up the hill. I have a feeling that these songs are going to be doing the pushing, We don't want to have to actually hike them.
Would you, on the other hand, though, Larry, look forward to it, to get away from a few nappy nights and teething and all the rest of it? Because it's different this time for you.
No, it's part of the gig, and there's when you've made a record that you believe in, when you've written songs that you believe in, you feel good about, it's kind of that does a lot of the work for you. You go out there and you play them and you enjoy them, and one of the things about the past has been, with all the artifice and whatever, they were good fun, and it was the right thing to do, but it was tough. It was hard because, some of the songs, the arrangements, they weren't finished, and therefore we were changing arrangements all that, and we're trying to bring them up to scratch. This time around, I don't think we're going to have that problem. So I think it will be a different kind of tour, and also going into arenas as opposed to stadiums. It's a whole different thing, seeing the whites of people's eyes, and we haven't done that for a while. We did it early on in the Octum Baby tour, but it was only like, I think it was 2 or 3 months. This is going to be a year of indoor shows. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it is hard to get up and go, but I think this is a good record, and it's going to be good live. And the songs are recorded as a band, and we can play them anywhere.
Dave talking to Larry and Bono, and interesting comments about the songs. And
because the thing about the songs is there are at least 5 or 6 songs from the All That You Can't Leave Behind album in the set, and I think it's the last song that I think will probably be, I hate to use the word with you two, anthemic, but it'll sort of prove something in the days to come, because it's called Walk On, which is from the album, and that track there is the one for Aung San Suu Kyi, the Burmese leader, etc. And it actually really lifts the whole thing at the end, just like 40 used to years ago, and I don't mean to go back, but it actually does do that.
And you're going to hear a lot more of that later on. In the meantime, let's take a break.
So the nurse says to me, Mrs. Brown, your granddad's after donating his liver, kidneys and his heart. I said, you must be joking. He thought that was the breakfast menu. She's back. The woman I shaved me legs for, Agnes Brown, starring in the new play called Good Morning, Mrs. Brown at the Gaiety Theatre. It opens on April 10th and tickets are available from only £9. The phone number is 01677 1717. Telephone transactions are subject to a booking fee. We don't get that.
No, you see, son, this isn't ice cream for boys. Now, this is HP Selections triple chocolate for daddies. Swirls of milk and dark chocolate with chocolate sauce and chocolate pieces. Nah, you wouldn't like it. It's like cabbage. Huh? Oh, you like cabbage? Well, it's like beer. Yeah. Remember I said that daddies only drink beer because they have to? Yeah, and if little boys drink it, it's yucky and they get sick. And you wouldn't like that, would you? No. Well, this is the same.
HP Selections. Only for grown-ups.
This is the Gerry Ryan Elevate Me Show, direct from the States, thanks to Aer Lingus on 2FM.
Do you mini laminates? Did you have? Did you have
the old laminate situation?
Did you have the one with the one on it?
I had one with a one on it. Yeah. I had one with management on it, but I had a yellow little sticker. That means strawberries and cream for Dave.
And but what about? Did you have a mixing desk?
Nah,
one? Did you have, no, you didn't get that.
That's for all the celebs.
What about working personnel? Did you?
No, I didn't want to get confused with somebody who gave a damn.
Yeah, you did. So you didn't have a photo enhanced VIP one, no?
I didn't. Jerry, my face is my laminate.
There were a couple of people, by the way, who tried the "my face is my laminate" trick. They will remain
nameless.
Their
faces are very flat.
Now their faces are very flat. Were there a lot of celebrities there?
No, to be honest,
it was kind of more of a family affair.
An
really.
Opening gig. It was a bit more like, as you say, like there were 2 parties kind of backstage. Where there was one upstairs for, I don't know, I think what do you call him, Paul Oakenfold was DJing up there, and then there was just a bunch of kind of easygoing stuff backstage. A lot of people from Ireland, a lot of people from Dublin, but like celebrity-wise, I remember the last time I saw you two in here in where are we? Oh yeah,
Miami.
In Miami. It was the second date of the Zoo TV tour, and the 2 people I always remember one was Del Shannon. Everybody told me I was there, which is really pretty sad because Del Shannon had been dead for 2 years. I kept saying, I don't think he is here. He's not alive, actually. And the other one was Grace Jones, who arrived in one of those motorbikes like that Steve McQueen has in The Great Escape, with an amazing little kind of hat on. He just gets off the bike and says, "Where's my seat?" all this sort of stuff. But that's why
we did have a couple of supermodels. We had
Naomi was
Naomi
there.
Campbell, who
golf cart.
Naomi Campbell apparently fell off a golf cart and injured her leg.
No, she's got two broken toes.
She was in fact more dramatic than Bono because there was an enormous amount of ballyhoo going on.
Kerfuffle
with
is the word.
crutches and band-aids and plasters. And
Christy Turlington, of course.
much quieter and
as usual, slimming and puking as usual.
Shy and retiring Christy Turlington. Right. Dave said that, I didn't.
I have a great story about Christy Turlington and Gerry Ryan. I'll tell you one thing, right? Well, there was something about, like a long story, I'll say, and your wife was involved, saying, oh, Christy, I wasn't talking to Christy. Was Christy Moore at the gig? No, Gerry, Christy Turlington. She's a supermodel. Oh, right, okay. Anyway, that goes back too far.
It's a very long story, but she was bouncing on my knee, and I asked her what she did for a living. This is a long time ago at a producer's birthday party, or no, his marriage. And she said, I'm a model. And I said, oh, Jesus, maybe one day you'll be as big as Naomi Campbell. And she said, well, actually I am. I'm Christy Turlington. And I said, I never heard of you. Lovely girl, though, lovely girl. And no strain on a man's knee either, can I say.
But just remember that last night's gig was the opening gig of a tour, which, as you know, takes them to Miami again for Monday night, and then there's Charlotte and Atlanta and Houston and loads, Dallas up to Vancouver, Chicago is 4 dates, New York is a bunch of dates too, and then I think it's July 6th, I think it is, they start in Copenhagen for a good long tour of Europe. So I mean, like anything, like a lot of things are going to change. And the two big dates that will be different will be Italy and Slane, because they're the big, huge outdoor ones. All the rest are the stripped down.
There was a nice surprise, I think, for all music fans last night, and you really have to understand how big this band are becoming now in the United States. They are getting a lot of what they call hot airtime here in the United States. The Coors, PJ Harvey was to play support or be a special guest, as they now call it.
Open the show,
I think she glandular fever, which kind of excluded her, unfortunately, from Saturday night's show.
She'll be back for Houston, Texas next Sunday, yeah.
But the Coors were ready, willing and able, and after the show we staggered through the ensemble glitterati, found their dressing room, bashed down the door, and this is what we found. Now come in closer here. Come on, I can't talk to four people in this sort of... Come on, crouch, kneel, get in closer here. Now, tonight is a big one. It's the beginning of a very important phase in the life of you two. You find yourselves, I imagine, suddenly invited to be special guests tonight in front of a very, very powerful and potent audience in a wonderful venue at the beginning of something very exciting. Jim, what did it feel like?
Well, it felt absolutely brilliant. We were very, very lucky and honoured to be asked to be invited onto this show. I think we kind of looked out in the sense that PJ Harvey, who was supposed to be doing it, actually got a bit sick. So
what does that mean? What happened to PJ Harvey?
She has glandular fever, so she couldn't do it.
Because I think if I had leprosy, I'd have got up on tonight.
I know, but I reckon maybe the voice wasn't working. And also the fact that we locked her in her room ourselves 2 weeks ago. You hear the odd bang, but I think she's calmed down now. That's terrible. No, I mean, God love her and everything.
God love her. Actually, God love her. That's what we say in Ireland. But it did. What did it feel like to walk out? I mean, you know, nobody calls the band that comes on before any other band nowadays a support band. It's a special guest. So you've got the kind of the slight trauma of being on before, the curiosity, of course, that you two would have been tonight. Did you think about that?
Well, I mean, certainly. I mean, it's always very difficult for a support band. You're coming out to an audience that generally are there to see the main act, and so you're not necessarily going to get the response that you might like. But thankfully, we got a fantastic response from the audience. I think you'll agree with that. We went down very, very well. So it certainly alleviated our worries about it.
Okay, guys, what happens after this now? You're going to guest on the tour. Does special guest mean that you're going to be there every night or every occasional night?
Well, I mean, at the moment, seeing as PJ Harvey had cancelled, we were offered 4 dates and we could only do 2 because we have to go back to the UK because we've set up a load of promo to do, so we have to go back and do that. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, of course, if we were offered more gigs, I'm sure we would do them. But at the moment, we got the first 2 dates here in Miami, so we've just been so happy with that. But otherwise, I don't know. We don't know yet.
Now, a very exciting moment is actually taking place as we speak before the microphone here, and that is Dave Fanning's actually turned up.
Yeah. Well done,
which I think deserves a bit of a round of applause.
I was out rounding up some interviewees.
Well, we have the Coors here, Dave.
Your absence was the loudest interview I ever had.
Thanks very much, Dave.
Would you like to come down here and join us, Dave? Would you?
Yeah, why not? Come down and join me.
No, I mean actually genuinely get down here and join us. That's it, Jim. Thanks very much.
That
Now-
would not be beer bottles falling on the floor.
Now, the vacuous, shallow, empty part of the interview is over, and I'm going to hand over the microphone to Dave, who will ask much more penetrating and incisive questions.
No, what I'd like to know is this.
Dave, there's the mic, look.
Oh, thanks very much, Gerry. Very good. What I'd like to know is this. PJ Harvey was supposed to play, as you know. You're on the In Blue tour around America, aren't you?
No, we're not on tour at the moment. We're just doing promo. We did Radio
Crap
City last
question.
week, but no, you're actually wrong there. And we're actually going back to finish our UK tour.
Well, the UK is the In Blue tour, yes.
So you are on the In Blue tour. That's all I wanted to know.
In America.
All right, okay. So, in other words, when you got the call to do this, how many days did you have to prepare for the gig?
We didn't have any. We but we have been gigging for the last while until I got sick. But God, and I
loads of
think all
albums out and
and
everything.
we had the Radio City Music Hall gig behind us, and I think there's a thing about going on before a band. Going on as a support band, it's like you've got a clean page, and it's really exciting because nobody knows you, and all you can do, it's a challenge just to impress them, leave them high, and go. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of more exciting rather than being let's rehearse our set 5 million times.
What was Radio City like? Because I remember when Riverdance first went to Radio City, and John McColgan, who was producing and directing the show at the time, he says, he dreamt of going to Radio City all his life, and there they were on the most maybe famous stage in the world besides Stratford-on-Avon, and he said, Gerry, it's a shitty stage. It's slants, it's slopes, and it's a freak out. We had to get it recovered and everything, and it was really an unpleasant experience. What was it like for you guys?
It's very beautiful. And it's very, it's a momentous, and it's got history and all that, and you feel that when you get on the stage. But you're right about I don't wear shoes on stage, and there's these bumps in the thing, so I thought I'd probably have a few broken toes at the end, but I'm all right. I didn't. But yeah. So, but it was.
Go on, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. But no, aesthetically the place is pretty beautiful, all right. But there was that problem with the stage, and also we spent. I don't want to run the venue down, but we spent an hour trying to sound check, trying to get the sound right for us. And I got to tell you, unfortunately, sonically it wasn't a great place for us to play in. But in saying that, we had a great gig ourselves, and the crowd that were there, it was the biggest crowd that we played to in New York, and they really loved it. So really, we've no complaints.
Okay, well, guys, the last question from me, and then I'll hand over to Gerry. It's this: you say you're doing a tour of Britain, and you got to go back to do the tour of Britain, but you're also doing a promo tour of America. What does a promo tour actually take in? What does it actually mean?
For us, when we come to America, it means we basically get up pretty early in the morning and do a lot of TV shows. That's promo for us. Everybody has a different type of promo, but it's generally radio, TV, early mornings, as much as we can do. And with us, we try to do live gigs in between there to keep more of a. This is what we actually do for a living, not just do TV shows. We kind of try to keep all that together. So we try to do shows as well, but as much as we can do. We're only here for 2 weeks, so the last 2 weeks, whatever. So we're going to go home, and then we'll come back again. We'll come back and do a radio tour in May.
And how is In Blue done in America?
It's platinum, so it's great.
Okay.
It's great. Yeah. Sorry. It's platinum now. So when we went gold, we went okay, we're gold, and now we just feel great about it because it's finally gone platinum, and it couldn't be better for us. And the single's doing really well, and I think our album jumped from 70 to 40 something, so in the last week. So it couldn't be better for us. But you still got time to go with the record, here, because it's still quite new here compared to what it is at home.
Rod, can't you deny yourself just this once? Well, you're only human. Human, the new album from Rod Stewart. Irresistible. Oh,
Okay, guys, welcome back. And before the ads, you heard music there from the Coors. Myself and Dave, as professional interviewers and broadcasters, would just like to point out that
we're not going to sell that one.
Yeah, the likelihood of the Coors interview being syndicated is pretty slim.
I tell you, it started off there when Gerry started off one question saying, well, of course, you were playing in front of a powerful and potent audience. It could only go downhill from there. So I started go like, tell us about the In Blue tour. We're not on the In Blue tour. I don't care. Tell us about it anyway.
Can we just say that we're both willing to admit that our interviewing powers may not have been at their height.
But Jim pulling the table was great. All the bottles falling on the floor.
We just felt that you'd be interested in hearing a little from the Coors, because they were in very good humour last night and very gracious hosts.
As we have to keep saying, a smallish venue for you too. Yeah. The big ones coming up in terms of outdoor and etc. is Italy and Slane, of course.
Now, you'll hear a little later on in the programme some of the technical guys and the designers talking about what was involved in putting together the Elevation Tour, which, of course, like all U2 shows, is going to grow and it's going to change over the coming months. But Slane is going to be the big one. Have they any idea of what's going to be involved in terms of production? Well, I'll leave the technical guys answer that question a little later on. Dave did catch up with Henry Mount Charles with the dollar bills lingering in his mind, thinking about Slane after watching the success of the show in Miami. And Dave had a conversation with Henry, and it went a bit like this.
Okay, Henry, the question you've been asked 1,000 times over the last few weeks, will there or won't there?
There might be.
Okay, you still don't know?
I still don't know what I'm looking for.
Okay, a lot of logistics to work out, is that it?
There are an awful lot of logistics to work out. What I have rejected absolutely is the back-to-back, because that is... Saturday, Sunday would be a nightmare. We couldn't handle it. I would have to say that normally, I've been at this effectively for 20 years, and I've always had a formula, always one show a year. Everyone knows what the score is, but this is a perfectly extraordinary set of circumstances. My mail is enormous. I know that there are an awful lot of disappointed U2 fans there. I'd be absolutely, totally genuine. I've actually met almost more people who haven't got tickets than people who got them. That is a serious concern. I don't think there is any other band, quite frankly, in the world which would have sold out Slane so fast. And I don't think there is any other band in the world, à ce moment, that could fill Slane twice. It is the 20th anniversary.
I was there.
I know, and so was I. And, that makes it really special. There are so many special things about it. The fact that the band recorded the unforgettable Fire in the Castle. The fact that Adam Clayton is my little daughter's godfather. In fact, as far as she's concerned, it isn't U2 performing at Slane this year.
It's Uncle Adam and three other guys.
It's Adam and the Boys.
Adam and the Boys, okay.
So, I mean, obviously, I'm looking at it very actively. I'm in the States as we speak. I've been on the phone pretty constantly. The Taoiseach made a terrific initiative by fast-tracking the legislation, which we've wanted for years. That makes it a feasibility, but obviously we have to, when that goes through,
there are other factors.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 10 minutes since the gig ended here in Miami. It's completely stripped down. You've seen Zoo TV.
Yes.
You've seen Pop Mart.
Yes.
This is a lot sort of smaller, if you like. The songs are what it's all about, and the closeness with the audience.
I actually really enjoyed it, and I know this sort of sounds corny, but sometimes corny things are the best way to describe it. It was New Year's Day to a beautiful day. I mean, New Year's Day to...
Whoa!
I really, having seen them in so many different places, and I was actually talking to Iona earlier, my wife, and we were reminiscing about seeing them play in Milton Keynes, and there was a mud bath, and seeing them in so many different... but this had an intimacy, and the band looked like they were really enjoying it. Mind you, I did freak slightly, as did an awful lot of other people.
Bono fell during the third number,
but I've just been talking to Adam. He really enjoyed it. The band really enjoyed themselves. I'm sure they always enjoy themselves.
Well, this is only the first gig, so by the time Slane comes around, 40 or 50 or 60 gigs later, they will be rocking, right?
They will be really rocking, and believe me, Slane will be just that little bit different.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Henry. Come on.
Take care.
Students, teachers and parents, you simply can't afford to miss Exam Brief, Ireland's most comprehensive guide to the Leaving Certificate with this Monday's Irish Independent. Prepared by experienced teachers in association with the Institute of Education, Exam Brief builds into a full guide to this year's Leaving, covering all the core subjects in depth. With the exams fast approaching, Exam Brief is crucial study support for this year's Leaving. Plus our new look technology magazine, Get Connected, and your chance to win a £200,000 apartment in the heart of Dublin. Don't miss this Monday's Irish Independent. Before you make up your mind, open it.
How about this for Big Games World value? A stunning PlayStation 2 with £100 worth of money off vouchers for just, wait for it, £379. Yes, it's Games World Dublin, Waterford and now Merchants Quay Shopping Centre Cork, where the difference is in your pocket. Games World Dublin, Waterford and now open on the first floor at Merchants Quay Shopping Centre Cork. 100% Irish, 100% service.
1 and 1 is 2. 2 and 2 is 5.
Now, children, that's wrong. It's 4.
No, miss. My daddy says the special savings incentive accounts mean you get a free £1 from the government for every 4 you save.
Now, don't make things up, Katie.
It's absolutely true. To register for an information pack, call 1850 365 700 or visit our website at bankofireland.ie today.
Live on the hour, every hour, 90 to 92 FM. This is 2FM News.
It's 10 o'clock. Russia has banned the import of meat and dairy products from the European Union because of the foot and mouth outbreak. The Agriculture Minister Joe Walsh will visit County Louth today to see at first hand the measures being taken to try to stop the spread of the disease. The Farmers Association has said that people in the wider Cooley Peninsula are extremely worried about the lack of information about their future. And also staying dry elsewhere with a little sunshine breaking through in places. Highest temperatures 6 to 10 degrees. I'm Avril Hoare and that's the 2FM News.
Once in a while comes a concert you can't miss, and this is one of those nights with the legend Neil Young. Neil Young, uniquely live at the Point for one performance only this June. Tickets from £30, subject to booking fee, go on sale this Thursday, 29th March. Neil Young. Be there for his one night at the Point, June 12th, a night that, like Neil, will become legend. For more, check the Herald and www.2fm.ie.
This is the Gerry Ryan Elevate Me Show with Gerry and Dave Fanning, live from Florida for the start of U2's Elevation World Tour on U2FM.
Welcome back. Now, one of the most edifying things, I think, ladies and gentlemen, that you could say about U2's performance in the National Car Rental Centre, by the way, there were no rental cars there, they just called it that, was that this was a night for 40-year-old men in particular. And it was very edifying to hear Sam Smith saying that in his review he was going to be mentioning that very particularly. And I think, Dave, that's something that you talked to Bono about. The fact that, you know, they've reached middle age. There are very few bands that are still alive and kicking and making the amount of money and having the kind of success that you two have. But even more so, there are less and less of them who are still friends and who can still kick ass at the age they are.
Well, the way I look at it is, look back at 1985, saying one of the biggest musical things, obviously, in fact, the biggest musical thing of the decade is Live Aid, right? I mean, how many bands who were huge then are still doing whatever it is? I mean, not that the measure of a good band is that they last long. I never mind if a band only lasts for 6 months, as long as it was a good 6 months. But some people do judge it by longevity. If you do, then you two are, you know, a bit of an exception to the rule.
I think probably at the age that they all are, it's got to have been a question that was not only put to them, but also one that they asked themselves at 40-something or 35 plus or whatever the collective age of the band is at this stage, can they still hack it? And that's exactly what Dave asked them.
As you grow older, I mean, do you ever wonder, either individually or collectively as the four of you, if you can still hack it?
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, I think it's either an act of God or an act of grace on part of all of us that has us doing this. But for me, and I just speak for myself, I would find it very difficult to be in a world where there wasn't that kind of a row. I'd miss the din of Larry Mullen, you know, sort of blank stare at a lyric or a tune, or Edge scratching his head or his hat. And Adam is actually very generous. I think he's probably the most generous of any of us in the studio. But I remember somebody, I don't know who it was, probably Sting, who said, you know, a gang, being in a band is like a street gang. You know, you should grow out of it. And I couldn't disagree with him more, because I see my friends and I see, you know, family and people, cousins, as they get older, they get the arguments out of the room. They become they have less and less people in their life who tell them where to get off, and they become less and less interesting people. And I think it takes a kind of, it takes being really, it's much smarter and much tougher to actually stick with the program, you know?
Okay, well then, if one of the big things you have to do as you grow older in a band is to stay fresh, is one of the biggest pitfalls is you got to stay fresh without becoming a parody.
Right. That's why you have to keep changing it all the time, which is why the big idea on this album was not to have a big idea.
Yeah.
Let's the four of us just go
Well, you've
into
had a
the
lot
room
of big
and write
ideas
some
in the
tunes.
90s, you know? There's been a lot of big ideas.
We're good at big ideas. Look, Megalomania started at a very early age, and the bigger the noose, the bigger the head that fits into it. And we, I love the idea of pop and pop art and, pop mart and playing Andy Warhol, thinking what he would do if he got a hold of a stadium.
Yeah.
Or, thinking about those kinds of ideas, working with DJs, deconstructing, the 80s with Acton Baby and Zeropa, chopping down the Joshua Tree, as we called it. They were all ideas-led, and the songs came out of that, that head. This was songs-led. And it felt like that in the year 2000 was no time to be smart arse, was no time to wear sunglasses, even though I'm wearing them in a Beautiful Day video. My eyes get red, and they really do. Old red eyes is back, they call me around here. But aside from that, I feel it's time for an honest conversation. Just wherever you go, on the streets and bars and clubs, it seems like it's that time. It's time to talk, in a way that rings true. And I think these songs ring true. And they're about experiences that I, or the band, or people around us have had, and they ring true.
Okay, but I mean, like, the characters, you mentioned the sunglasses, the Fly and McFister and all that, was that carrying it one step even further to be, like, so different than what you had been in the 80s? I mean, there were words used in the 80s about you too, like self-righteous, like pompous, like earnest and all those. First of all, would you accept any of those three, or all three, or two of them even?
Self-righteous, no. Pompous, yes. What was the other one?
Earnest, like really earnest. Yeah.
Yes, the importance of...
But you embraced the old rock and roll whole thing in the 90s, and it was always quite a joke. It was like as though you were really on the outside.
Yeah, though the plastic pants and the sunglasses, I got to like them a little bit, and I liked the remove. It gave me a bit of space as a person who I can only sing from a certain place. I actually can't hit the notes of the songs without living in them. So I can't, there's nothing ironic in the way that I sing. Right. But I enjoyed a bit of irony just to give me a break when I was going out for a drink, or, as we were traveling around the world with our own plane and train and God knows what else, and spending $250,000 a day on those big shows and risking bankruptcy. The sunglasses and the attitude and that sort of identikit rock star, the sort of Robo Bono, was just such a relief than the person in the 80s who was trying to, be as true as the songs were. I can't do that anymore. I can't be as true as the songs. I like a little bit of the bullshit. I like going out for the night, and I don't want to just have that, all the time, that full, intense conversation. I like an honest conversation, but I don't want the, take on the world every night,
So you had a laugh?
We had an amazing time. It was like Savonarola, the guy in the Middle Ages. It was like the bonfire of vanities and media iconography and money.
It's not the easy thing. The only baggage that you can bring. Love is not the easy thing. The only baggage you can bring is all that you can't leave behind. All that you feel, all this you can't leave behind. All that you reason, it's from the time. Love is a thing that all that mind. All that you sense, all that you speak.
Yeah, there it is. As I said earlier on, that's the one that gets the title of the album, All That You Can't Leave Behind. It's called Walk On. That's the one they played at the end last night a bit of an anthem, I think, for the future.
Okay, folks, you're listening to Gerry Ryan and Dave Fanning elevating here in Miami. After the break, we're going to take a little trip backstage and talk to the boys and girls of U2 who make the show actually happen. Back after these.
I really feel like Chinese for dinner. But the jet lag's a killer. Go Silver.
Billy Joel, the ultimate collection.
Don't go changing, she's always a woman to me. Sing us a song, you're the piano man. In the middle of
36 massive hits gather together on this stunning double album.
You may be right. Tell her about it, leave a tender moment alone.
Billy Joel, the ultimate collection, out now.
They say money can't buy happiness. Win it and see. Go Silver with Diet Coke.
This is your official Slane station with the Gerry Ryan Elevate Me Show, live from the Sunshine State, thanks to Aer Lingus on 2FM.
Okay, there may not be 90 trucks this time. They've reduced it to 16, I think, and the stage show may be much more musically focused than visual, but there's still an enormous amount of preparation going on backstage, isn't there, Dave? Please try and take these broadcasts seriously, would you?
Sorry, okay. I mean, but there definitely is a powerful and potent audience. Okay, I won't. Sorry, what were you saying,
It's
Gerry?
going very well.
It's going very well, Gerry, yeah.
So we got to talking to some of the people backstage. There's a small, tight crew of people who are involved in designing the sets and putting together all the bits and pieces. We had to walk outside the National Car Rental Centre because they're actually doing the sound check to talk to Kathy and to Willie Williams, but that'll be a little later on. In the meantime, we meet two guys who've been with U2 kind of almost since the beginning.
Definitely since the beginning. Two from Cork.
Yeah, we've got Sam, we've got Sammy, and we've got Joe. They'll introduce themselves now in just a few moments' time. And we brought them backstage, almost into the toilets backstage, to ask them exactly what their jobs were.
Basically, I'm the drum tech for Larry Mullen, also crew chief. So basically, all the backline guys come to me with all the complaints, and if stuff isn't happening quick enough, they just come and see me, and then I see the stage manager and so forth up the line.
And on a night like tonight now, when it's the first of the tour, they haven't been on the road for 3 years, everybody planking themselves?
Well, to be honest with you, because of this promo tour we did, and the band playing these shows in New York and London, I think there's more confidence now than there's ever been about the playing side of things, because normally we finish an album, there's a break, straight into rehearsal for a tour in a strange environment. But we've been around the world basically over the last few months on this promo thing. It's the first time ever they've done this, which has been great for us, the backline guys, and the band. So I think that the confidence will be high.
Really. And how many songs have they been rehearsing? And like, if for instance it's 35 or 40 or 50, what's the 24 tonight? How did they get picked?
Oh God, we're working on about 3 or 4 different sets. And a lot of it is, it's in conjunction with the set and the stuff that's happening on the screens. So it's between Willie, the band, and whatever directors are brought in to do this. But there's a lot of old songs, which is great, you know.
Well, will it mean that normally each gig will start off with the song Elevation because it's called the Elevation Tour?
Not necessarily. It's a great opener. It's a really great opener. It really kicks, you know. So for us, it's great because there's 2 things. It's good for the band to really rock it out on the first one because you get to know all the things that are happening sound-wise on stage, and we're really pushing it to the limit, so we know what it's going to be like to go right through the set. But I'm sure they'll pick some other good openers as well. That's a really good one.
Are you married, Sammy, are you?
No, I have the same partner, Terry, for 19 years.
Okay, same difference now. Where's Terry now? What happens over the next, year and a half?
She's at home. She's from New York, but she moved to Ireland 23 years ago, and it's tough, you know. I mean, I've been in the studio with him for the last 2 years, and so we got used to having a kind of a system, even though we finish 2 o'clock in the morning. But I still go home. But no, she'll come out to some of the shows, the multiples she'll come out to, you know, rather than these one-offs because they're too difficult.
It's a weird one, though. She doesn't make sandwiches for you when you go to work at night. You know she's not at home, and the scratcher there waiting for you.
I know.
Does she phone you in the middle of the night and say, "Hey, where are you? Hope you're not out partying now at the moment"?
I suppose she might make the odd phone call to check, all right, like. I have my mobile on me, so it's on a vibrate, so I can feel it when she's calling me.
Sammy, you mentioned two things there. You said one, Larry Mullen, and number two, backline. What exactly does that mean?
I think we have a good thing going on that. You know, it's like I like working with him. I think we bounce off each other quite well.
But if there's a backline, does that mean there's a front line?
Not really.
And is there a middle line?
A middle line.
Does he treat you fair? Is he nice to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because we've heard terrible stories, Sam, really. Please, it's your chance to come clean on it.
Everything's great.
Joe Hurley, you're a fan of football. It's half-time between Ireland and Cyprus. What do you do on the road in terms of being in America to find out about matches like that? Do you have it?
I'll ring Tony Hickey at half-time, who's the head of security, who sits next to Mick Byrne, and he'll tell me what the half-time score is.
So it's straight to the team in Cyprus then?
Absolutely, yeah. Then I'll call Larry and tell him, and we'll all be happy if we got a result at half-time.
OK, listen, obviously the big question about this kind of thing is Pop Mart. There's been the one before, which is Zoo TV, etc. Is this tiny in comparison?
Not at all. I mean, the whole concept of what we're doing here is basically, it's in the context of the album and stuff like that. We're getting back into indoors, the whole communication, the whole contact and all of that sort of thing, and that's what this tour is all about.
You've been working recently, Joe. You've actually been very busy with the Cranberries and indeed REM, and now back with, I suppose, the guys that you started off with in the very first place. What's it like? Are there comparisons, or are they odious?
Comparatively, I mean, this is my family home sort of thing in the U2 camp, and I've been sort of blessed to work with people like REM and indeed with the Cranberries, who, you know, and there's an Irish connection there as well, which works really well. But I think they're quite similar as in REM and U2 in from a band perspective, and the people and the atmosphere, the working environment is pretty much the same.
Can you explain for everybody at home exactly what Joe does?
Joe, actually on this tour they've given me a fantastic title as audio director, and that means the responsibility begins, ends and stops right here, right now.
Okay, and finally, Joe, one last one is this. Does Adam use the sub bass, or is it too loud for the indoors?
Yes, you will feel the sub bass tonight, Dave,
I like it.
in a way you've never felt it before.
Sam O'Sullivan and Joe Hurley, maybe two of the most important guys from a technical point of view. I mentioned Kathy Owens and Willie Williams. Maybe, Dave, you'd like to introduce them?
I certainly. I'll tell you the screens and the scrims, which are the oaks that come down after about the 7th or 8th song, and there's kind of stuff projected on them, and Bono is behind them, sort of loping along and dragging his left leg. I don't think that's because he fell earlier on. I think that's genuinely supposed to be that.
No, it's the beginning of a character,
Dave. It's the beginning of a character, probably.
It's kind of limping hobo.
Indeed,
look, it's going to be
like
good.
A cheap McFisto. So she gets all that together because she is the visuals and she is all the art direction kind of stuff at the gig. That's Kathy. And then Willie will tell you what he does himself. We'll start with Kathy, though.
We're actually standing outside the venue now because it's getting a bit noisy inside with the sound check. We've got Kathy Owens. Now, Kathy, let's have a look at the badge here and see what you're describing yourself as this week. Catherine Owens, Creative Director, Screens. Explain.
Well, third tour, seems like. And it's a lot more fabulousness happening on U2 in U2 world. But this time things are slightly different. Pop Mart, as you may remember, was mega extravaganza of visuals. And this time it's a much more, not scaled down version, because that's not really what's going on, but it's definitely a more edited version of visuals.
What exactly will you be being creative about? Come on now.
Well, being creative about. Okay, I mean, the way it sort of works is band do the album, Willie designs the set, Mark and Willie start building the set. They call me in, get the vibe from the album, the band, the designers, and then I'm sort of told to go off and come back, you know, do some visual shopping and come back with
the
results.
So you're the sort of habitat girl of the whole thing, are you?
I am. I'm the habitat girl. This time we have projections as well.
Yeah.
It's a two-tier situation. It's the projections. But what is different is that this year it's a different kind of budget. It's a different type of setup. So it was one-stop shopping. Went and gathered together some of our great artists from the last tour, and basically it was, okay, what can you do? How many things can you do?
Okay.
And both for projection and screen imagery.
Okay, well, listen, look, one last one on that is this. You said this is your third one. That means Pop Mart, and that means also Zoo TV. You say, but it's not really scaled down. It is!
Look, the surprises are on their way. That's all we can say.
We've got Willie Williams here, and Willie's loosely described as the show designer. And of course, with a band like U2, who have such an incredible history in terms of visual design for the show, what an undertaking. Except on this occasion, it's back to basics. How do you reconcile that?
Well, it's just a different kind of challenge, really. In fact, I'm calling it forward to basics, because in no sense is this a retreat, you know. Now, what's great about being indoors is that it's so much more contained. You know, you don't have the scope for building a 100-foot McDonald's arch or sending a 40-foot lemon into the crowd, but these might not necessarily be bad things, you know. But no, it's the intensity of an indoor gig, because they tend to be much louder, and the audience are much closer to the band. And that's really what I've been working with, finding a way of bringing the band and the audience as close together as we can, you know.
Now, we had a quick look outside at the stage as it's actually being set up. If I just look at my watch now, it's 2:10 in the afternoon, about 6 hours ahead of concert time. And it reminds me just very vaguely, I don't know whether Dave would agree, of the Rattle and Hum set. It's got that kind of vibe, but it's stripped down and kind of black and white.
That's that's a good observation. That's how it seems on the surface. The difference is we've got some surprises, because obviously we're in the 21st century now, and the past couple of U2 tours, as you know, were based on these enormous spectacles, and a lot of that was really fun because nobody else could do it. You know, either they didn't have the technology, or they weren't daft enough to spend the money, or they didn't have the know-how. Whereas you have to be a little more subtle nowadays, because every other show that's out there has got the big production, the big video screens, and this, that, and the other. So we're being a little, hopefully a little smarter this time around.
Okay, I just got some very good news there, by the way. It's Ireland 2, Cyprus 0. I just thought I'd throw that in. Okay, Willie, the thing about this gig indoors here, I'm looking at this stadium here, right? And I can see that no matter where you're sitting, no matter where you are, you're going to see the band. So you probably said that to yourself too, and said, we don't need screens. Now somebody else said, well, actually, Willie, we do. So did somebody override any decision that you originally made?
No, not at all, actually. I went in, my first proposal, because again, we started working on designing this middle of last year, I suppose. And my first thought, given what we've done with video over the past 10 years, where do you go from here? Well, how about not having any video at all, right? Which I kind of enjoyed as an idea. The band enjoyed as an idea.
Pub gig.
Well, it's a pretty big pub, but the thing is, you know, because of the expectations of the audience, there's a certain responsibility to, to give everybody a decent view of the band. And even though we laughingly call these intimate venues, you go up the back row and you're still a long way away. So it seemed essential to me that there was video screen coverage. But I was absolutely determined not to have the usual, the big... When you go to concerts now, they have the screens either side, and I've been saying it's like an HBO special. There's the gig going on stage, and then up either side there's this TV show going on, which is very, very difficult not to look at. And so I was determined to find a way which would let the people at the back see the band close up, but without it being this huge distraction.
Sure.
And I think, hopefully, we've managed to do it. So.
Despite the charm of the subtlety, which obviously you're not going to tell us any more about, and we'll have just wait and see it tonight, you do have two big outdoor challenges still ahead of you, where the rules will change, with Italy and with Slane. Have you had any thoughts about what you're going to do with those?
None whatsoever. I think we'll see how we get on tonight, and then we'll start thinking about that. So.
By the way, that thing I just saw at the front of the stage, could I call that a U2 mosh pit? Is that a mosh pit?
We're not allowed to call it the mosh pit for technical, legal liability reasons. There's been discussion on what it should be called. The love pit was one thing. I decided that because most people will be waving frantically, it should be called the arm pit. So that's what I'm going with.
All right, thanks, Willie.
You're welcome. See you.
It was Willie Williams, the designer for Elevation 2000. By the way, Elevation is a reference, I think, Dave, to the way the crowd was viewed from the stage, particularly during the European tour of Pop Mart. Bono says, that's what I like to see. I like to see them moving up. And that's what they were hoping for by getting indoor here in the United States. Now, one of the highlights of the evening was, maybe not surprisingly, and maybe yes surprisingly, was one of the oldest songs, or maybe the oldest song played on Saturday night.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they did about 24 songs on Saturday night, and around number 7 or 8, they did a song called New York from the new album, All That You Can't Leave Behind. Then they kicked up, and everyone went completely completely mad because they know these songs from the past, which were Sunday Bloody Sunday, and this one. This is the first one they did of this little section I'm talking about.
The choice is yours on an Isle of Man holiday. From scenic wildlife to wild nightlife, remarkable history to living culture, the Isle of Man has it all. Adventure and activity, or luxury and relaxation, child-friendly resorts and romantic getaways. The Isle of Man is ideal for hassle-free holidays or easy weekend breaks. Best of all, it's less than 3 hours plain sailing from Dublin or just 40 minutes by air. Call Isle of Man Tourism on 01874 4455 or ask your local travel agent for details. The Isle of Man. It's a playground on your doorstep.
Available from all Des Kelly Carpet branches. Unlimited stocks to clear at only $149 per square yard. Do your part to stop foot and mouth.
Now back to Fort Lauderdale, USA. Thanks to Aer Lingus for the Gerry Ryan Elevate Me show on 2FM.
Now, in pretty much the same way, jeez, he's still at it. This is meant to be a serious view of the U2 tour, and Dave Fanning's turned it into a completely juvenile kindergarten experience. We caught up with Paul McGuinness, the fifth member of U2, about a fortnight before they left for Miami in U2's principal management office, and he was sitting back in a quiet, relaxed mood, looking back over 20 years of U2 and Paul McGuinness and rock and roll and touring and the whole 9 yards. Let's hear it.
It's necessarily smaller than the sort of thing we would do in a football stadium, and it doesn't have to be as big. I mean, we call these places we'll be playing in this time the small places, but they are still between 18 and 20,000 capacity. The big places are the 50,000 capacity. The logistics are completely different. If you build a stage from the ground up, literally standing on the grass, you have to bring everything that the audience see, the steel, the planking, the decking, the lights, every single thing. Indoors, it's much, much easier. And though the show will be very complicated and elaborate, and there will be a production, it'll be easier to erect without weather. The trucks give you some idea. I think there will be 15 trucks on this tour, whereas on the Pop Mount tour there were nearly 90. That sounds ridiculous, but that number of 90 included 3 stages, and each stage was 15 trucks. So there were 15 sets of steel leapfrogging around the country or around Europe. 15 trucks per stage, so that's 45. And then what we used to call the universal production, which went to every show: the sound, the lights, and the lemon. Thank God we only had one lemon. That was 45 trucks itself. So as you can see, the handling, the numbers, the logistics are much more containable this time, and I hope it'll be a much more relaxing experience for the organisation than the last tour, which was frankly a bit like fighting World War III every day.
Now, I recall somewhat during the middle of the Zoo tour, when it was about to metamorphose into the Zooropa tour, the whole thing changing, becoming massively much bigger. Is there any chance that might happen this time around? Can those small teenage number of trucks, could that blossom into 60 or 70 or 80 or 90 again? Can we see you hanging from Traitor's Gate?
Not without warning. I mean, the Zoo TV tour was a wonderful, wonderful production, and at the time it was when television technology particularly was changing very rapidly, and the machines, those television screens that we used on that screen, on that tour, have been replaced by much easier, much more portable systems, and everyone's using them now. But in 92 or 91, when that tour started, it was mind-blowing what we were doing, and very much state-of-the-art, groundbreaking technology and creativity at the same time. Great fun. We paid for it. I remember at the time thinking, oh, this is great. Philips make this stuff, and they own Polygram. They'll be happy to sponsor a tour called Zoo TV using Philips technology, wouldn't they? And they own the record company. This is synergy. This is what they're always talking about. Anyway, they wouldn't give us a penny. They just made us buy the TVs, same as anyone else.
Of course, now that you've brought it up, maybe in the early days, and I think maybe this applies to all of us, the sensitivities would have been much more obvious about things like sponsorship. If somebody came along to you, maybe they already have, maybe it just hasn't been announced, and said they were going to throw a bag load of money at a U2 tour, would you go along with that?
I'm not against it, really. And people obviously make approaches to us all the time. We've just never said yes yet. I wouldn't rule it out for the future, particularly if either later in this tour we change the production, go outdoors and start trying to build a big circus like Pop Mart for the outdoor. There might be an outdoor part of this tour. We haven't really decided yet. And one thing I would certainly like to do next time we do a stadium show is have the advertising support that a sponsor can bring to a tour like this. The problem with Pop Mart was that in those, admittedly fairly few of them, but in some markets around the world, we really could have done with an £800 guerrilla brand to sell the tickets that the difference between selling 85% of the tickets and 100% of the tickets is a lot. When it comes to that's our margin, that's our profit, and I'm convinced at this stage that it would be worth biting that bullet and getting an advertiser to support us on an occasion like that. I haven't yet persuaded the band of this, or I haven't had to, or I, if you like, I failed to persuade them of that the last time. This time we don't have the problem because we're indoors. We've sold out the entire American tour, I'm very happy to say. So the numbers we're playing to on this tour are admittedly smaller than on the last tour, but it's a different kind of approach to touring and a different approach to the music. This album was much more, if you like, song-based and musical than the experimental records that U2 had made with Zooropa and Pop, even to some extent Achtung Baby, though I think Achtung Baby is now regarded as a sort of classic song cycle. It was a kind of back to basics musically album, and the tour reflects that. This will be the first time that the audience will really be able to see U2 up close. And in the 20,000, I know 20,000 doesn't sound like you're going to be that close, but that is very close compared to somewhere like Giant Stadium or the other enormous places that we've played outdoors in the past. The exception to that, of course, is going to be Slane. But Slane, there was no point in trying to play indoors in Ireland. I think it would have just got up everyone's nose. And we didn't really feel like playing 10 nights or 20 nights in the Point. That wouldn't have done it for us either. That would have ended up like going to work every night. So the Irish show will be a big event. And the great thing about Slane is that everyone in the country knows how to get there. If you don't know, your elder brother knows how to get to Slane. There's a guy in your town who runs a bus to Slane every year. It's like a national habit, like Croke Park, and it will be an enormous tribal event. I mean, U2's associations with Slane are extensive. I remember when Henry first, I think what happened was his father left the country and said, "Look, if you want it, it's all yours. See if you can make it. If you can make a living with it, you're welcome." So Henry was trying everything at the time. When I first knew him, I was a film technician, and I was the location manager for a very bad horror film called The Inn of the Flying Dragon, and we rented Slane for the banquet scene, and Henry played a waiter. So I've known him since then. That was in 1976, I think, and maybe even 75. And then I became the manager of U2, and by 81, I think that was the first Slane. Was the first Slane 81? We were just sort of beginning our ascent as U2, and Thin Lizzy were booked to play the first big concert at Slane, and U2 were on that bill, not second on the bill, but somewhere down it. And I remember we wanted to make some kind of impression in kind of production terms, and I secretly hired a special effects guy that I knew called Jerry Johnson from Ardmore Studios, and he hid himself in the bushes on the far side of the river behind the stage. And at the end of U2's performance, he let off the fireworks, right? And Thin Lizzy were furious because they had no fireworks, and we were upstaging them, and that was absolutely the intention. And Philip was, I think he was very cross about it, but by the end of the day, he'd forgiven me anyway.
Just personal now. Of course, we're all older. even myself, and you know, you all have grown up doing this. You've all got families, some have second families, lots of water under many different bridges, and maybe the attractions of late nights and parties and staying up for a week in a row and going bonkers, it may not be as attractive as it used to be, or even if it was, it might kill you. So I presume all that comes into mind when you're looking at a tour like this and how you plan who goes and who doesn't go and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say there's still a certain amount of partying. I love. It hasn't been completely cancelled, but yes. I suppose we're all a little wiser and more sensible. And the rate at which these shows will be played, there'll be about 4 a week, almost prevents too much debauchery and dissolution. That there's a gym in the hotel, and you'd be very surprised not to meet a lot of people in it the day of the show. And the band I think the band are looking great. The crew are looking a bit older, mind you. But it's sort of they're in a very good mood. They've released, I think this is the 9th or the 10th studio album. I think it's the 10th, and it looks at the moment as if it could very well be their biggest ever record, which is quite amazing if you've been making records for 20 years, roughly one every 2 years. The Joshua Tree was the biggest record in its time in 1987. In the first year and a half of its release, it probably sold about 14 million. That is now up to 17 million last time I looked. This record is at 8 million already worldwide. We've just released the second single. So on this kind of trajectory, it could very well be their biggest ever record, because the campaign's going on for another year.
Now, of course, this is glory days. These are glory days in the sense that the tour's sold out and the album is enormous. The sense of relief that you must all feel must be not just gigantic, but palpable. I can see it from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, it is. You're quite right. It is always a bit like relief, because you set these things up. You know, you organize the marketing and promotion and advertising of ticket sales and record sales and so on. And you know, it's not a complete surprise to me when the album goes number one in 34 countries as it did. We expect that because we know how many the last one sold, and we, you know, the market research through the retailers, what they will order indicates that there are that many people looking for the new U2 record. And we've done that. You know, U2 records have been going to number one in all those territories for several years now. The last 5 or 6 albums have been worldwide number one albums. It is still, however, an enormous sense of relief on that day when the chart positions come in and you can kind of tick them off, number one, number one, number one. And finally you get to Switzerland and it's number 2. And everyone wants to know who's in charge in Switzerland. We'll kill him. But it is, yeah, it's relief, and in a way you kind of get the pleasure of that happening comes a little earlier in the cycle before it becomes public, when you know that it's being ordered in Switzerland, you know that Swiss radio, well, Switzerland, Sweden, anywhere, you know that the radio is playing the record, you know what your friends are saying about it, and the ripples, if you like, from the first people who hear the record start to go out around the world, and there are people around the world you speak to, and the people the band speak to, and you know pretty early on whether it feels right or doesn't. And I have to remember a different feeling at the time of pop, which was, you know, we regard, well, pop is described sometimes as something of a dud. It still sold 8 million in its life, and it's a very good record. I think it's been probably talked about enough. the singles didn't get finished. Bono always says they could have, if they'd had another few months, they would have polished those singles and they might have gone over the top. There were no real hits on the pop record. Very enjoyable record to listen to, but hard work to promote at radio. And this one is, I must say, much easier. There are, seems to me, 6 hit singles on this record, and we'll release every one of them as a single before the end of the campaign, I'm sure.
Okay, finally, will it be, and it's maybe the most obvious question, or is this the last time? And I presume there's about 28 different opinions on this.
I shouldn't think so for one moment. I mean, let's see how it goes, but U2 always lived by performing. I mean, the band was, we broke in America by being a touring act. U2 thrive in performance, and these new songs are extremely well rehearsed. They've been rehearsing on and off now since the autumn, and apart from going away for all these very pleasant awards shows and performing on them. So the new songs are really well played in. It's the same as U2 kind of always was. I remember in the early days when the recording process got more and more complicated, I would sometimes go into the studio and Edge would be playing keyboards, and the multi-layering of the music would be taking place, and I would say, are we going to need other musicians? Are we going to be getting other people onto the stage as well? And no one ever really liked the idea of that. U2 was always very clearly in their own minds 4 people, and that's going to be the same this time. There are no backing singers, there are no extra musicians. It's just the same 4 people you've always known standing on that stage making an enormous noise. And I must say, I'm looking forward to the next year.
Oh my goodness, thank you. God bless all who sail in her.
No one ever really liked the idea of...
I simply adore cookbooks. They make a kitchen look so used, even if it never has been. But what they can't do is fill your kitchen with that lovely smell of cooking, unfortunately, which is why I'm so pleased to have found new Enjoy from Birdseye. Enjoy is a delicious range of freshly frozen foods, like this fantastic penny with plum, tomatoes, mozzarella and basil, all chopped, washed and ready to cook. It's amazing. My kitchen has never been so necessary. Enjoy. Change the way you eat forever.
For every £4 you save, the government will give you £1 extra. Sounds too good to be true? Well, it gets even better. Introducing the new government savings scheme at AIB, a scheme that's totally unique. Now at AIB, we have a range of special savings options to enable you to make the most of this opportunity. Call into any AIB branch. An offer like this happens once in a blue moon, and it won't last forever.
This is your official Slane station with the Gerry Ryan Elevate Me Show, live from the Sunshine State, thanks to Aer Lingus on 2FM.
Okay, it's almost time for myself, Gerry Ryan and Dave Fanning, to say goodbye from Miami. We do hope that you've enjoyed our little trip backstage with U2 on Elevation 2001. A couple of people to say a quick thank you to. From the U2 office, Holly Peters, Sheila Roach, Paul McGuinness and Susan Hunter. From the Gerry Ryan Show, Paul, Jim, Siobhan, Mick and Pat. Dave.
And I'd like to say thanks to everybody in the whole world, because I love everybody in the whole world, and for sending me to drama school when I was a little boy, and without whom this Oscar would not have been possible. And to all my friends in Ireland.
And the North
Hello.
Ocean takeaway. Thank you very much indeed.